Welcome to another edition of Day 4 with the man, Frank SCALISH. Day 4, I believe it's number 128, Frank.
We're climbing.
How are things going in the lovely state of Ohio this morning?
Well, they're going way better than they were last week at this time.
Yeah, I've been talking to you, and you sent me a picture.
Yeah.
And it was, it looked like chaos in the streets of Cleveland Heights.
It was. We actually had, for the first time since they started recording it, we had a tornado touchdown in downtown Cleveland. And it was probably 4 miles from my driveway. And it literally ripped wires off the telephone poles. And, you know, the big silver things, those, I don't know what they are. They're on the telephone pole. Yeah. Knocked them off the telephone poles. There were wires down for forever. So we were without power from Thursday of last week until Sunday night, this Sunday night.
I did not see a generator in the SCALISH residence. Was there? Do you have a generator out in?
My buddy Brian called me, said, "You still don't have power?" I said, "No." I said, me and Todd, the prop guy, we went in on a cow and we bought a cow, and I had loaded my freezer up with it downstairs, and I'm like, I'm losing all this meat. So I got my buddy's generator. We hooked it up to the refrigerator freezer upstairs and the freezer downstairs. And so I saved all the food, everything in the refrigerator I threw out, but the freezer was good. I went out when the power went out. I went to a gas station and bought like 10 bags of ice.
Smart.
and shoved them in all the freezers. This way, it would maintain the temperature in the freezer, and then hooked the generator up, and then I was solid. I mean, I didn't give a crap about not having lights, because I have a gas stove and I have a gas water heater.
So you had hot water and you could cook.
And I could cook. So I made, in the morning, I just made cowboy coffee, roll it up in a filter, wrap it up in a screen, throw it in a boiling pot of water, and, good to go.
I've never done that.
Yeah, it's a little thick, but it's good.
We're both coffee guys in the morning too.
Oh, 100%. And I was using the irony of it is it was Firehouse, Black Rifle Firehouse, I think they call it.
We do that every morning. We sit there, we get on, you get on around. You're on usually around 8:10, 9:10 your time, because it's 20 minutes, talk a little bit about the show, and then with about 8 minutes left, we both say, all right, time to go refill the coffee, and then we disappear and then come back. But a cool show today. We're going to dive into a little bit of the backstory, because we're over 2 years of Day 4 in. I mean, heck, this is 128. That's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe.
But I don't think I know the story of how you got into painting and designing. Like, I mean, obviously everyone knows you fished the Bassmaster Elite Series, you fished the Opens, you fished all that, but I don't think that you've kind of gone behind the scenes as to how, because there's a bunch of guys that are getting into it because of you right now, Frank.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. I see a lot of stuff some of the guys are painting. I try to follow all the painters I can, just because creativity works like this. At least for me, it does. When I create something, if I have an idea of a color or a lure or what have you, it's usually to fill a void. Like when I made the Speed N, Norman had a missing link in it, and I needed a bait that would track tight, light, very little pitch and roll, mostly wobble and vibration, but tight. So it would excel in the cold water spring periods, on those 45-degree sloping rock banks, boulder banks, when the fish are staging for pre-spawn. They're not quite pre-spawn yet. It's right before the pre-spawn. And I needed a bait to do that. So I monkeyed around with creating that bait. And then what I wound up doing was I wound up grinding a bill off of a deep little N, putting a quasi square bill on it. And then I had to mess with the angle to get it to do what I wanted it to do. And by the time I got done, I got a bait that I was happy with and catching fish on. That's the bait design.
And then it almost won the classic.
Yeah, it did actually. The guys were
I didn't know that
smoking it.
at the time. I mean, I would have had a massive rooting interest in it because I remember I was at the press conference with Stetson Blaylock and Micah Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
They both were talking about this new Norman speed end, and they're on live. Blaylock was on live in that marina, catching them on it, boat flipping, showing. But at the time, I knew who you were, but I had no idea you had any part of that. It would have been nice to have a little rooting interest in that.
Yeah, it would have been apropos, as they say. But yeah, so it's so crazy enough. I was talking to the powers to be at Pradco, and crazy enough, I said, those guys in the classic got to get this bait because it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on Gunnersville,
Gunnersville that time of year, this is going to go. And so he's like, we're on it. Don't worry. They got them. And I said, okay, cool. And I never, you as an angler and everybody listening as an angler goes, the Bassmaster Classic is truthfully not the time to experiment with a new bait. I mean, you got, you're fishing for everything. So you want to have your confidence lures, handy. And so I was really impressed that those guys had enough faith in my design that they would experiment with it at the classic. And it turned out to be really great. I think we had 3 top 10 finishes with that bait, being part of those finishes. So it really worked out well. But my designing is always based out of a need, a void, and that's it. Now my lure colors, on the other hand, I designed here's the truth of the matter. I got into lure painting because of my fly tying. Way back in the day, I was traveling across the country bass fishing. You all know that. And we would always go to Sanibel Island in the spring, my family and I. And I brought my fly rods with me because I was going to be close. And in between 2 events, I would go down to Sanibel, spend the time with the kids, the wife, and then go back on tour. And so, as fate may have it, I never really fly fished in the saltwater, and I had gotten there the first time I ever went. I got out there, and I didn't really know. I mean, I knew what I was doing to catch fish, but I didn't really understand
finer points.
Right. And so, I would catch a fish here and I would catch a fish there, mostly speckled trout, some small pompano, ladyfish, typical near shore stuff. And at any rate, what happened was this gang of bait fish swam all around me, and they were literally all around me. And as the tide was ripping out, they were using my current block to get behind. So I had all these bait fish, and they're literally like touching up against my thighs. So I looked at them in the water, and I'm like, holy crap, I got to make flies that look like them. So I went to a tackle shop down there, but they didn't have any fly tying equipment. So what I did was I looked at all their saltwater jigs with their synthetic fibers and bucktail fibers and everything. And I started picking lures out that had the colors I wanted in them. I went back to the condo. I cut all the fur and stuff off of these baits and tied my own flies. And then went out the next day and literally slaughtered them. Like it was ludicrous. The speckled trout I was catching was absolutely ludicrous. And so from that point on, really, I said color matters. And so then I really got deep. I deep dove into the colors. I mean, I painted crankbaits as a kid, but mostly I made them look like real things, like a bluegill or a crappie or a creek chub or whatever. But now, I took it to a way different level.
We'll dive into that, but we can't go more than 10 minutes into the show without a hearty congratulations, Uncle Frank. September, October 2023, Bassmaster magazine, the Bassmaster magazine, the 500th edition of Bassmaster magazine. And he got a feature article by none other than Mr. Mark Hicks, a 4-page beauty in Bassmaster magazine.
I know. I got to give a shout out to Mark. Mark and I go way back, actually.
It's called
Mark,
Paint Your Own Crankbait. Yeah. How long have you known Mark?
Oh my gosh. Since I started fishing semi-pro when I was probably 19 or 18, I've known him. And then when I fished Bassmasters, he did a lot of articles with me then. That's actually a great color that you've got there. That's the Bomber Fat Free 7. You can get that color. It's electric shad is what I call it.
Very cool. So this is what I found cool because we were talking about this. So here is the bait. I'll just read a little bit for those that are listening. Ohioan Frank Scalish, a former Bassmaster Elite Series pro, his penis is his. Holy cow!
You better rephrase that.
Little Mitch McConnell moment there. Ohioan Frank Scalish, a former Bassmaster Elite Series pro, has been painting his own crankbaits, jerkbaits, and topwater lures for decades. His wildlife sketches with pen and pencil attest to his artistic ability. For the past several years, Scalish has been devising new colors for hard baits made by Bomber Norman, Hedden, Rebel, and other brands under the LureNet banner. And then it goes into spray painting essentials, airbrush, air compressor, painting it. Basically, it's like a day 4 that you've done in the past in written form, except
Correct.
It's in Bassmaster, and then actually goes a step-by-step on painting your own crankbait. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a little bit of just, we'll go through the article, but then I kind of want to go back to how you got into it as a kid, because it's easy to say, oh, I saw it and I knew, but man, there has to be an origin or something that got you into it. But this is cool. You have, let me see.
I have that original bait. Blow that bait up. If you can blow that bait up.
Hold on.
I know what you're trying to do. I got it.
Here's what I'm trying to do. That's not right. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, this is impressive to me. This is the bait in the article. That's the actual bait that the picture in the Bassmaster magazine is taken from, right?
Correct.
That's the bait. That's pretty cool. So if you're looking at your Bassmaster at home,
I'll tell you what I like about the picture in the magazine. You can see all my lime marbling on this crankbait, but it really shows up in the magazine photo. My cameraman actually took that picture, and it came out so good. But yeah, so here's the underneath of it. There you go.
That's really cool.
There's the underneath of it.
And it says, with enough practice, you can turn old lures into works of art. This is one of Scalish's favorite creations.
Yeah, I love this bait. I love this bait just for the effects I have on it.
Mm-hmm. So if you're traveling to, say, the Bassmaster Classic in March, and you're looking for something maybe to put on your wall, like, say, bring this Bassmaster magazine, and you could maybe sign that right there, right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
There you go. Now we got something. Do you also have, so on the next page, on the Paint Your Own Crankbait, there's the step-by-step of paint.
Yeah, so what I did was I took pictures, those pictures on the step-by-step, unfortunately, are from my cell phone, but I took those pictures.
Now they look great.
I actually took those pictures as a tutorial to send to, so when they manufacture the bait, they get each step processed correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I did that. And then those details in the magazine are very trimmed, let's say, because they couldn't put everything that I have written down on this magazine. It would be 20 pages. But here's that one.
That's the actual bait that's in.
Yeah,
that is this bait right here.
That is that bait right there. Let me try to see if I can get it. There we go.
Wow.
That is that bait right there.
That's pretty cool. I mean, this is Bassmaster, man. It doesn't get any bigger than that when it comes to fishing magazines.
So the stripe is unique. Oh, hold on. Okay,
Uh-oh, that would have been a great live moment.
it would have been.
So number 2 through the index.
Oh, that would be perfect. So the stripe is unique because the stripe has purple pearl on it. It's white with purple pearl. It's white pearl, actually, white pearl with purple pearl. The stripe has it. You can almost see it in the tail of the crankbait right now.
Yep.
On the screen. Okay. The back is pearled. Crap, I don't even remember what color it is, but like a lime truce pearl.
Yeah.
But I created that by laying down tinted pearls over it and then put the marbling on top of that. So you can see the back has kind of got a green pearl to it. The belly has a blue pearl to it. I'm trying to get you to see the pearls.
Yep. And I'm zooming in on what you're showing too on the, boy, look at that.
Right. So the belly has like a blue pearl to it, and the stripe is a purple pearl over white pearl. So this bait, the irony of that is I've been fishing this bait for a while. This one is actually this bait here and this bait here are coming out in a few weeks on LureNet with a bunch of other Norman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it'll be available. I'll let you guys know, but it's real close. We're close to getting them on LureNet. Like, I mean, weeks close. And I'll let you know when they come out, but there's a handful of other colors. So what I do is when I know I'm kind of off track, and I apologize for that.
There is no track on this show, Frank.
So like this is my pure gizzard shad. This is a true gizzard shad color right here. This is like the real deal. This is what they look like. Okay. So on this one, all right, I had been fishing it and I've been catching them really good on it. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll see some pictures I got with that bait. I've been catching them really good on it. So there's a couple of lakes that I fish that are super, super, super clear water. And so this bait doesn't look like this in the water, which is unbelievable, but it actually looks alive. It doesn't look like you see it here. So when you put it in the water, the whole thing changes. It's unbelievable. So I was trying it out on that clear lake, and oh my God, dude, they wanted it big time. They wanted it big time. So I said, okay, cool. Well, the other day I had a friend of mine come in. We went fishing the other day, and the lake I was on was off color. You could see down maybe 2 feet. And I was throwing this bait, and it had a completely different appearance in that off color water. It looked white in the off color water, and it just shimmered the pearls. So I was like, oh my God, this thing's like a chameleon. You know what I mean? So it's become a, I have this on, and that Bomber electric shad that was in the picture in the Bassmaster magazine, the one where I'm holding up the fish, that electric shad. Those are on my rods first, these two colors first. And that day that we did that electric shad, we were actually filming the Bomber video because the new colors, all my new colors were coming out in Bomber, the next gen series. And I don't know how many bass we caught, between 3 and 5 pounds. I couldn't even guess, but I can tell you this. It was nonstop. I had two rock piles it was literally every cast nonstop for a half hour. It was ridiculous. And then we needed more B-roll, so we went at me and Joe, my camera guy, who actually has the Hunt Fish Shoot channel, but my camera guy Joe and we went back a couple days later because he's like, dude, we got to get some different B-roll. So I said, yeah, okay, let's go. So we went back, and I go, what do you want me to do? And he goes, just start catching fish. So I'm like, okay. So I pull up to this place, and it was exactly the same deal. It was cast after cast after cast, and it was unbelievable. It was one of the best crankbait days I've had in a long time, where I could honestly
That's
tell you
awesome.
that I don't know how many 25-pound limits I caught in
Oh,
one
so
day.
big ones.
Oh yeah, dude, all of them. I even had some 6-pounders in the mix.
That's a lost art these days. I feel like the deep crank, with everything that's going on in the industry and the forward-facing sonar,
Yeah.
is kind of a lost art. I had a tournament this past weekend, and it was the first time in a couple years that we got on a legitimate deep crank bite, and it was the coolest thing ever. I forgot what it's like to get a plug down there 12 to 15 foot.
And then
And
it's
you're cranking, and then you load up and you just feel, and you're like, got him.
oh yeah.
It's one of the best feelings in fishing.
Well, I love it because you most of the time you're appealing to a bigger class of bass.
Yeah.
So I really I'm like I dig the big crankbait bites.
Creatix brand acrylic. There was a question someone said.
Fire it up there. Createx, yeah.
Yeah, Scott was wanting to know what paint company and what clear coat.
Okay, so I use a lot of Createx waterborne paint. I like the Wicked series a lot because the Wicked series is semi-transparent. So you can do coat if you want it to get it nice and heavy, you can do multiple thin coats. Remember, you don't want to glob on one solid coat. Like solvent-based paint you can cover in one coat, but solvent-based paint for the home painter especially is dangerous to use because the VOCs, as they leach out of that solvent-based paint, create nerve damage if you're not masked properly or you don't have proper ventilation. So I actually got rid of all my solvents and went to all waterborne. And so Createx I found to be fantastic. There's other paints, but you have to remember this is going to get detailed.
That's fine. That's what we're doing. Go detailed, Frank.
Okay, so Createx, and there's another high-end paint. And forgive me because I honestly forgot the freaking brand. So forgive me, but you paint that goes through these design brushes like, you know, the Iwata Eclipse and your Pachets and all your other, you know, fine art airbrushes. The tips are small. So the best paints to use, okay, are paints that don't have thick pigment in them. Now they all look liquidy, but some paints have thicker pigment which won't go through your guns very good. So Createx and this other brand, and I'm going to look it up for you, and then I'll tell you on Thursday what it is. They're refined, so they're super thin, so they go through the gun really well. And people say, well, just thin it out better. And you can thin it out better, and it'll go through your airbrush, but you're losing the pigment, and eventually it's going to clog up the tip of your airbrush because it's not fine enough pigment. So I stick with, don't be afraid to spend money on the paint. The paint's not the most expensive part of the process. But if you buy inexpensive paint at a hobby shop that's not necessarily a brand name, the pigment is not reduced fine enough to go through your gun.
PPG, that's what Frank Jr. is saying.
Right, but PPG is an automotive paint. That's a completely different story.
Oh, so that's not the one you were thinking of.
No, I do use a lot of PPG stuff.
Thought wrong, Frank Jr.
Right, he's on the right track, but I didn't get to the PPG stuff there. Okay. I use a lot of PPG stuff and I use a lot of House of Color stuff, but mostly what I'm using with those companies is their pearls.
Okay.
Because their pearls come in, you can get them two ways. You can get them in a powder form, which is how I prefer them, because then I can mix my own pearls using a clear base, not clear coat, a clear base. And Createx has a clear base. Basically, it's clear paint. And so I can put my pigment, my pearl pigments in there and create my own intensities with the pearl by overloading it or underloading it or mixing several pearls together. Okay, so all this stuff you'll find out as you start to dive into painting on your own, basically. Okay, so the other thing to remember is I said I like the Wicked series a lot because it's semi-transparent. So here's what happens with that. For example, on this bait here, okay, I can pearl up the chartreuse because it's semi-transparent. So I'll put pearl into the actual paint itself, and then I'm pearling it. The other trick I do is I pearl the base. So like if you go to go to the part of the magazine where I have the step-by-step process. I'm going to then go to the white one. It looks white in the magazine, but go to the white one and blow it up. And I'll explain this as easy as I can explain it right now. That base, okay, it looks white, but if you notice, the gut portion of that bait is more solid than the side portion. The side's semi-transparent. So here's what I did. I dusted it with white, and I held it way far away from the gun and just dusted it with white so it's transparent. So I got a little mist on the bait. And if you hold it up, it would be transparent. Then I took, on that particular bait, I either used white pearl or silver and did it again, far away, dusted it with the white pearl. Then I dusted it with a platinum. It was still transparent. So now I've got a transparent pearly base to it. Then when I laid down all my other colors, since you can see through this bait really. Yep. So when I laid down all my other colors, my pearls came through the bait. You follow me? So that's why I like the Wicked series, because it doesn't go on heavy and cover. It's semi-transparent. So if I want to make a solid bait, like for example, the back on the shad is solid.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was I just made several coats down the back of the bait, several coats with the airbrush down the back of the bait to get it to be more solid.
I'm not a painter or anything, but it sounds like you need to have your pearls dialed in if you're wanting to do realistic and quality paint jobs. Like it's
yeah.
You have to know how to do your pearls, and you have to be able to do, and that's
100%.
I mean, it's not only the base, but you also, it seems like you use it to finish, for realism, for everything. Like pearls are everything when it comes to bait.
Yeah, that's my motto. That's my motto. Pearls are everything. And I have a new series coming out to prove that to the world. The series won't be available for a little while yet because I'm still working on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a whole series coming out with the pearls, and
based on pearls,
and these are dynamic, dude. I'm fishing with them today, actually. Not today now, obviously, but yeah. I mean, currently I'm fishing with them already because I want to see what they look like in different water conditions. I want to see, how the light refraction gets them in different depths. I mean, I'm doing a lot of research. I do that with most of the colors I paint. So when I paint them, they work. I make sure of it.
It had to be cool though, seeing yourself in Bass. I mean, let's be honest, you expect to see yourself in Bassmaster when you're on the Bassmaster League series, when you're winning opens and Angler of the Years and that. But there's a little bit of a gap in there. A little bit of a gap. But dude, that's got to be very self-fulfilling and gratifying to be able to open up that magazine and see a major spread in the biggest fishing magazine in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
fishing.
It was nice to be in there again. I mean, it's been a while, obviously, because the last time I was in that magazine, I think was 2010 when I fished the Classic. So
13
that was
years later.
Yeah, 13 years later, which is crazy. My Bassmaster career, was pretty. It was up and down, but it was consistent.
You
And
caught them when you were supposed to catch them, and I think that's key. That's
yeah,
key to longevity and sticking around. Is when you're supposed to catch them,
you better get 'em.
90% of the
Yeah.
time you were in the mix.
Yeah, and so I got into the magazine quite frequently,
Mhm.
and it was very fun and exciting. But you got to also remember, Matt, back then, um, we didn't have this platform.
Oh yeah, you just had the magazine.
We had the magazine, we had radio, and we had television, and newspapers and stuff like that. So getting into the magazine back then was everything because that's how you built your name.
Mhm.
That that's how you did everything. Today, with the advent of what we're doing today, this is an astronomical benefit to the young anglers today because it's an easy form of promotion done properly. Obviously, you have to have integrity. You can't get up there and lie about crap. You got to tell the truth, and sometimes the truth hurts and people don't want to go there, but you got to go there,
Mhm.
because that's what makes you relatable to the common person, because you're just a person like everybody else, and you got to understand. So this venue here fascinates me because I never had it when I was fishing. It came in very late on, like when I was leaving the game. This was starting to grow, and I wish I would have paid more attention to it in the beginning, um, like some of the other guys like
That's
Ben
like,
Milliken. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well,
He
that's
was
what Jeffries did to get into it with
right,
the Bass Zone. I mean, when we early in the internet, early in the video, early in
right,
the first in the live, first in the podcast, first in the live
right.
shows. Like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
he had the foresight to do it when it was a pain in the ass to do it.
Well, when
It
nobody
wasn't just click a
understood it.
couple buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody understood it either,
I, I mean, I remember he
you
would
know?
be going to sponsors and his whole thing was to try to show them the value in live and the value
Yeah,
in the internet and a show like that. And there were a lot of them that went with it because of how well he had done with the Fish OK and the Bass Zone website. But
right.
just, I mean, now it's just taken for granted.
Well, I mean, it is. Now it's actually I don't won't say it's taken for granted, but now it's expected.
Yeah.
It's more commonplace. I mean,
Yep.
when you guys started all this, okay? And remember, Matt, you're part of it. You were part of it back in the beginning too.
I wouldn't have done it. I mean, Mark started it. Mark started it. He gets the 100% credit for that. I came on
Okay.
early, but Mark is the one who started all of it.
Okay, so when he started it, it was brand new. People didn't
Yeah.
understand it. And so now just take a peek at this kind of platform, not just in the fishing arena. Okay. You've got um like regular bat ball sports,
Yep.
stuff like that. So enter Big Play Sport Network.
Which we are
Um
simul streaming on Big Play Sports Network too, a Ohio-based
correct.
sports company.
Correct. So they're doing bat ball stuff with professional athletes. Um, just like we do the bass stuff, they're doing the sports stuff, and now they're putting us on there too because they want that outdoor venue too as well. And so you look at how far it's come. This has become this is the new platform. I mean, this is where it's at today, and just if you don't believe me, just look at all the new podcasts that pop up on any subject matter you can possibly look up.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. So
You talk about where it is now, but we opened the show with a little bit about, I mean, say what you want. I don't know, but how exactly, we've talked about how you got into it, like kind of professionally and with Pradco, but when you first started this, there's a pile of people who start fishing. There's very few of them who start fishing and say, I think I can do it better. Or when something doesn't exist, they say, I think I can make it. And that's what you did. How did that kind of come about from starting fishing to actually starting tinkering with stuff before it was even a dream that you could do it professionally?
Well, when I was a kid, I was watching In Fisherman with my dad, and actually, when I say I was a kid, I was a kid. I was probably 13.
Yeah.
And I was watching In Fisherman with my dad, and we're watching Al Linder do his thing, and I got my sketchbook out, and I'm doing something, and my dad's like, well, "You're not even paying attention," and I'm like, "I know everything he just said," and I could literally relay it almost from memory. And so, because back then we had Fishing Facts and In Fisherman. And if I'm not mistaken, Fishing Facts was first, and then In Fisherman was born out of Fishing Facts, but magazine. But anyway, so he goes, what are you doing? So I said, well, Dad, if he's talking about these fish are eating bluegills, why don't they just make a lure that looks like this? And I hold up this drawing of a bluegill I did. I erased the fins off of it and just put hooks on it and a bill. And he goes, oh, because I don't know, and then sure enough, 3 years later, they come out with the lifelike lookalikes.
Was that a Bagley's?
Yeah. 3 years later, they came out with baits that look like bluegill and crappie, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, I was too young to know any better back then. And then it happened several more times from me as I was growing up, still not what I would consider an adult, but older. And I had thought of some ideas and never acted on those ideas. And then sure than crap, they come out. And I'm like, I better start thinking about this a little more, because if I'm thinking about this before it's happening, maybe I can get involved in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'll never forget it, when I got interviewed for the sponsorship from Pradco Outdoor Brands.
Wait, well, you skipped way too much stuff there. So you were fishing the opens. You had made the Elite Series already. You had said, like, how did that even, like, where were you as far as angling?
Okay. So I'm still a boy. I'm 13. When I was 15 years old, I believe Bassmasters went to Thousand Islands. Bo Dowden won the tournament, flipping a black and blue jig in the eelgrass.
Okay. That'll never happen again.
It'll never happen again, but I'll never forget it. I will never, ever forget it, because I didn't know that you could make money fishing tournaments. And so I told my father, I said, I'm doing that for a living. And he went, no, you're not. You're getting a job in a company and you're going to start out sweeping floors. And then someday you're going to run that company. You're going to school, you're doing all this stuff. Yeah. And so every time I wanted to put my foot forward, we'll call it the laws of society, were telling me, no, that's not how you do it.
Expectations.
Right. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to get a job. You're going to work 9 to 5. You're going to, do this. So in the back of my head, it was burning me alive, because all I ever wanted to do is exactly that. And so I never stopped fishing ever. And I hunted a lot too with my dad back then. My dad was, no offense, Pops, but he sucked as a fisherman. He was the worst. We would go places and I'd go, Dad, we're doing this all wrong. You got to go here. You got to do this. You got to, and he'd be like, oh, Mr. Know-it-all, do what you want. And then we'd start smashing fish and he'd be like, okay. So anyhow, the long and short of the story is, I fished semi-pro stuff while I had my 9 to 5 job in marketing, of all things. Mm-hmm. Didn't know how that was going to help me, but in marketing. And then
if you don't mind, what type of stuff were you marketing? I don't know how deep you went, but I'm curious.
I was doing furniture retail advertising, not only on a local level, like furniture chain stores in the area doing their marketing and advertising, but I was also the manufacturers of the furniture. I was also doing advertising for them, that they can then take my program to their dealerships and go, here's ad 1 for this, for Labor Day. Here's ad 1 for Black Friday. Here's, what I mean?
So there's some creativity in that job that's going to, at the time, that you don't know, that is going to benefit you down the road.
Yeah. The creativity part of it benefits me for this stuff. Benefits me for this stuff, as I impale myself again with a number 2 Gami. But the marketing and the advertising actually helped me sponsor wise, bigger than anything I would have ever imagined, because I never, and again, it's a small digression, so let's just
Yeah.
I never approached a sponsor and said, you should pay me because I could catch fish. I always approached the sponsor with the marketing mentality. So when I approached them, it was always cost per thousands, how many people I'm going to reach, demographics, et cetera, et cetera. So when I would show up with my portfolio to go present to a potential sponsor, it was all marketing and advertising numbers. I didn't have. I had one.
You were talking their language.
100%, because all they give a crap about is selling stuff. So how are you going to help them sell it? You're not going to help them sell it by catching a bass. You're going to help them sell it by the promotions, by the marketing promotions you can do for them, and by the amount of people you can reach. And so that's how I approached all my sponsorships. So in the beginning of my professional bass fishing career, I had, after my rookie year, I had one of probably the top 20 sponsor programs, money wise, on tour. And because Davey Height said something to me when I made the Classic. He said, Frank, he goes, people are going to approach you. And if you take less money than you need, you'll never get the money you need to do this professionally. So I'll never forget. I never forgot that he said that. So when I started going after sponsorships, I never gave away my billboard or the boat wrap. It wouldn't give it away. So when people would talk to me, they'd get their little 4.5-inch logos or whatever, and I would sell those, and I held back on my title. Now, Triton in the beginning, Triton got the title, but they also,
because you had to.
They also gave me boat.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't have a choice. After that, I realized that you can't make a living like that. I need a real title sponsor, and it has to be outside this arena. It has to be a non-endemic. And so that's where I spent my efforts. And then my title sponsor, OSI Sealants and Adhesives, contacted me out of the clear blue. It was actually their marketing agency that contacted me. And so when I went into that meeting to negotiate,
so someone contacted you who did exactly basically what you had done before you fished.
Correct.
So you were a marketing agency, and then you got contacted by a marketing agency once you are no longer in a marketing agency.
Correct. And
so you understood the hell out of every little aspect of what was going on.
All we talked about was the numbers. We didn't even talk about fishing. They didn't even give a crap about the fishing part of it. Now you need the fishing part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You need the fishing part of it because you got to be the player. You got to be a player. I mean, it's like any sport out there. Just because you got a uniform on doesn't mean you're getting paid. You know what I mean? You got to be the player. So, but understanding that part of it and understanding how to sashay my way through the media part of it, even though when I was having bad seasons, I was still able to garnish enough media exposure to warrant what they were paying me based on personality and based on knowing what I need. I knew what I needed number wise. So I made sure I never fell below that number. That was very critical. So I guess we're at the stage now of this. So
no, you're at we kind of jumped ahead. You're at a marketing agency and you're fishing semi-pro. So what, you made it? Or you made it to the Elite Series, or like how did it go from marketing agency to no marketing agency?
Well, what happened was I'm trying to remember this because this was my first season on the Elites.
Yeah, so it would have been 2006. Were you there the first year of the Elite? Oh, okay. So it wasn't called the Elites until it was
Tour,
the top 150s.
Okay. Right. So what happened was I was on my way to New York to fish a couple of tournaments in New York, Bassmaster events. And I got a message on my phone from a lady that said, "Hey, I got to ask you some questions about sponsorship." And it was vague. And there was no introduction of, "Hey, this is so and so
Mhm. But
advertising
you
agency."
were working full time and fishing.
Yeah, well, I had just quit my job.
Oh, okay. So
I-
it was real then.
It was for real. I had just quit my job. Got all my customers that I had. I gave them all to my buddies that were in the industry. And the bad customers that I had, I just told them I'm done. Um, the good customers I gave to my buddies.
Yeah.
The bad customers let go because nobody needs a bad customer. So anyway, so the long and short is I'm on my way to New York. I'm literally driving down the street, playing the phone message, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady wants to talk about sponsorships. It's probably one of the guys I know locally that fish locally. They want to pick my brain about how to get a sponsor or something. I'm not calling. I'm not calling because I'm focused on, I got to be focused on what I'm doing because I got to cash some checks because I don't have a job. So now I got to cash some checks. I get to the end of my street and I go, if I don't call this lady back, I'm the biggest a-hole in the world because then I'm, preoccupied,
Okay, now you're big
self-absorbed.
leaguing her.
Right, exactly. So I'm like, okay, I'll call. So I call, and when they answer the phone there, and I'm not going to say the ad agency name, but it's a three name ad agency. They're like blah 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 and blah blah, and all of a sudden in my head the bell goes off. So I go, yeah, is Marilyn there? Just a minute, please. And so the lady gets on the phone with me. She goes, we have a very good client that's interested in sponsoring you for Bassmasters. I said, okay, cool. I said, I'll be home in a month and I'll see you when I get home because I'm on my way to a bunch of tournaments right now and I'll be gone for a month. She goes, no, you don't understand. We need to see you today. I'm like, okay. I flip the truck around. I drive home, back it in the driveway, unhook it, run in the house, put a suit and tie on, hop in my car and drive to the ad agency. And I cut my first monster deal that day. And I called my wife and I said, this is my full-time job. We're in, baby. Look, I'm getting emotional over this shit, man. I'm literally getting
Wild.
emotional over
And
it.
all that happened in 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So why do you think they picked you?
they were a local company. They wanted a local pro. And after a while, it was because they liked my personality.
Yeah. But they didn't know your personality at the time. They just knew you were Frank Scalish, who's fishing the top 150s
Right.
in the arena that they wanted to advertise in from Ohio.
Well, they're an international company.
Yeah.
And so what wound up happening was I wound up becoming a spokesperson for their product, and we wound up doing some of the coolest, most amazing
So
things.
that's also just fortunate that you hit it off with these guys because it could have just been a deal where everything was fine and you got a year or two out of it. But then
Right.
I'm assuming in the deal, you start meeting people behind the scenes and then developing friendships and relationships, and you're not even doing it. It was just a great match.
Those guys are some of the best guys on the planet. In the beginning, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know them.
Yeah.
So I studied. Yeah, it's a good thing I turned the truck around. No shit, dude. So I didn't know them very well. So the first thing I did was I studied the heck out of their products.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all contractor, subcontractor stuff, subflooring, compounds, window stuff, everything.
Which you knew nothing about. Zero.
0. And so I wound up researching, studying. I even called them up and ask them a million questions. So then we had a photo shoot. I'll never forget this. It was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw in my life. So said advertising agency set up a photo shoot. And I had to go to do this photo shoot, and it was the funniest thing on earth. And it's not a slam on the marketing agency by any stretch. What it is, it's about due diligence and doing your homework. Just like I had to research every product that OSI Sealants created and what it was used for and how, the marketing agency should have done the same thing about the Bassmaster game. So I go to this photo shoot, and the building is in the round. Okay, there's no corners in it. I go to get the boat in the building, and I have to back the boat into the building, but it's only wide enough for the boat. All right. I can't make the turn to get it to go around this tunnel that I got to get into to get inside this building.
Okay.
So hear me out. I'm actually fuming, PO'd, because it's like, this is the dumbest thing we could.
How did they expect me to get in here? They knew I was coming with a truck and boat.
Correct. So I pull the truck forward, I slam it into park, I jump out of the truck, and I start taking the boat off the trailer, because now we're going to have to manually wheel it in this building. So I'm taking it off the trailer. These people come running out of the building. What are you doing? What are you doing? I go, I'm supposed to be here for a photo shoot. They go, we know you're going to get dirty. You can't touch nothing. I go, what? I go, you guys you're not going to. So we get 10 people. We got this boat off the truck.
Yeah.
We're jockeying it through the entranceway to get it in the building. We get it in the building. Big spread of food. I mean, this is the Hollywood bullshit. Okay. Big spread of food, big, all this stuff. And all I'm thinking is, how much money are these guys spending on this? And what kind of photography are we getting out of this building? So I get in the boat, we stage, hook sets, we do all this stuff, and we're
in a building. There's no water there.
No, we're in a building surrounded by, it's like a big green room, just a big giant, but it's white. It's actually light gray, big room. Anyway, so we're doing all this stuff. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're going to drop water down in a background. And I said, well, then we got to change the angle of the boat. They go, what do you mean? I go, the boat doesn't sit like that in the water. They're like, what do you, I go, the boat doesn't sit like that. It's going to be like that. So we got to lower the trailer. We got to make it so that when you drop the surrounding around it, it looks normal. And so I'm working with the people at the thing about this. So we do all this stuff. And so they go, hey, check this background out. And so they drop in this background. That's it, dude. That's one of the pictures.
Yeah.
So you see the mountain in the background.
I'm good, Frank.
You are the best. So you see the mountain in the background?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see the tree line in the foreground?
Yeah.
I told them, you got to take the mountains out, because it was a mountain lake. There was nothing but mountains around me. I said, you got to get the mountains out. We need a flat tree line somewhere in there. It can't look like I'm in the Rocky Mountains. It's got to look like I'm on a lake.
So that photo of you on the boat, you are not on the boat. You are in a building.
In a building. In a building in downtown Cleveland. Yeah, in a building.
And that's what you showed up, wearing a black turtleneck, the black OSI, the
100%.
jersey. You're pushing your boat through, and they're going, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right, 100%. 100%. And so I had them. I said, you got to get rid of every mountain in the foreground. You got to get rid of the high peaks in the background with snow on them. So we literally took the background out, dropped a different sky on there, took between me and the mountain out, put a flat tree line in there, because I had to make it look like it was on a lake, right? So I can see their computer. Yeah, Cleveland looks nice that time of year. These guys are the best fans on earth, man. So what happened was, I'm looking at a computer screen while they're changing the background, and I'm telling them, no, 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 yes, yes, no, no, yes, change that, do this, right? So here's what happens. I find out that we're going to the trade show and I think it was um, Disneyland in Orlando. Okay. And so they go, hey, this picture is going to be, 200 feet long on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, cool, cool. You know what I mean? Cool. Whatever. And, dude, I get there and here's what I missed on the computer screen. There's freaking icebergs floating around in that lake because because it was
some real early season mountain bassing.
Exactly, dude. So there's ice patches floating around on the lake. So when I got there, I saw that thing. I was like, what? Oh, that's such a good story. That's one of my favorite stories. But those guys at OSI were the absolute best people to work with on earth because they would call me up and go, come down here. And they were only 20 minutes from my house, their headquarters. So I would rip over there and they go, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. Let's do a promotion. You know what I mean? So we would make stuff up, make promotions up. And one of my deals was we cross promote all my sponsors and everything I do. No sponsor gets singled out. Yamaha tried to do that back then. I was with Yamaha, and Yamaha tried to do that to me, and I said no. And I said no, I'm not doing your photo shoots in a Yamaha jersey.
And then you're doing them all in your main jersey,
right? Because and they said, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, when my title sponsor wants to do 7 million cases of product with your logo on them, I'll just tell them take it off. Because it's their product. And they go, what do you mean 7 million cases? I go, yeah, that's what we're working on. Your logo is going to be on all their product cases. You know what I mean? And so I got all my sponsors cross promoted and we did good things. We gave boats and motors away. We did all kinds of crazy stuff with those guys.
Listen, this will have to be a two-parter, but before we move on, I will say that I feel like, and you never know, there's people listening in all corners of the world, that we should go full circle here. There's the OSI Tougher Than the Element Sealant website right there. And should a SCALISH decide to enter the Opens next year, that would be pretty badass to come full circle.
It would be. It would be
saying,
very
if someone out there from a marketing agency or OSI, I think that would be a cool phone call. You need to wait. You need to wait until Frank leaves for the tournament, and then you need to call his cell phone.
Right
say,
when
hey,
I'm at
we
the
need
end
to
of my
meet
street.
right now.
But yeah, so that's how.
And that lasted how many years?
10.
Which is a monster non-endemic for 10 years. Yeah. I talk to the guys now who have non-endemics. It's weird because they're the top of the guys that are my age, right? So I've kind of would say I've grown up with them, and I could ask them stuff that's inappropriate to ask business-wise to other people. You could be like, hey, what the hell are you getting for this? And stuff like that and everything. And it's amazing.
Right, and they'll tell you.
Yeah, but the top guys now with non-endemics, they look at it. In few exceptions, there's a couple like OSI exceptions like that with guys, but for the vast majority, it's, hey, these marketing agencies change. The people in charge change. They're looking for a quick hit for a couple years to fill a niche. If it lasts anything more than 2 years, it's an absolute bonus.
Right. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
And here, OSI did change hands.
Which is what happened, which is why it ended.
Yeah. That's correct, which is exactly why it ended. And it was very... for me, it was the most disappointing thing ever because it's all I ever wanted to do is be a professional bass angler. And
but you couldn't be angry because it lasted 10 years.
I couldn't be angry.
That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it lasted 10 years. I fished pro for 11. It lasted 10. The unfortunate thing was the last year I won Angler of the Year and made another classic and had to stop fishing.
But that proves your point that they care, that the fishing is there to get
secondary.
you there. That's right. Their main focus is on what you can do for the company, not what you're doing on the water.
Correct. So here, your fishing ability just gives you credibility in the industry to garnish the media exposure you need to get. The only thing companies care about is the exposure and how much business they can generate off of your likeness. Period. They don't care if you can catch a fish. You better catch them so you can keep getting the exposure, but they don't care, because when you stop catching them, they'll go on to something else. It's just like bat and ball sports. If you're playing baseball and you're hitting the ball a ton, and then you stop hitting the ball a ton, your value goes way down, and they find somebody else to fill the void. Hey, his on base percentage is better. We're taking him. You're out. Because all you are is a tool. And you have to remember that you're just a tool.
There's the T-shirt. You're a tool,
and that's all you. And that's all you're going to be is a tool. So don't forget it.
Let's save part 2 for another show, because that was a lot of really good stuff there that I really enjoyed. It. That was just kind of leading up to how you started painting. We haven't even gotten involved. I saw there was a bomber on your jersey back then.
Oh yeah,
we haven't even gotten into how that relationship started. If you're willing to share that, I would love to save that for another show that we can kind of dive into part 2 of that.
Let's just do a 4-hour show right now.
Well, we've got some other stuff. Speaking of value to companies, we do have to touch on what's going on over at LureNet, because there's some imminent some deals that end soon before next Thursday that we need to talk about. But thank you for sharing that. That was some good stuff. I had no clue about that.
Yeah, most people don't, because it's not something that I readily, talk about.
Yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, part 2, I would love to know about the whole, because if that happened back then, so that would have been when that photo shoot happened, would have been, you said 2002.
That photo shoot took place in 2001.
Okay, and you already had some current Pradco brands on your jersey back then, so you're talking about a 23 to 25 quarter century relationship with these brands?
Yeah, 2001 is when I started getting all my sponsorships tightened up. Because my first year in the Opens, I qualified for the Pro Tour.
Must be nice, Frank. Must be nice.
Yeah, well, yeah, it must be. And then my first season on the Pro Tour of the Elites,
show up and qualify.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm sorry. But then on the first season on tour, I made the Classic. I think I finished 30th in the points and made the Classic. And that's when I got hooked up with Bomber and Silver Thread and all the brands.
And we'll dive into how that worked and how you stayed with them in the second half.
Got it.
That's a good tease.
So because for the loyal listeners, watchers of this podcast, BTL has a code, BTL23. It's going to be 15%.
Capital BTL23.
Capital, my bad. Capital BTL23 for the loyal listeners. 15% off. This is going to go on for the entire rest of the year till December 31st.
Regularly priced items. That's key, because we've had some people in past ones who use it and they're like, hey, the code doesn't work. That's because if you're doing sale items, specialty items, stuff it doesn't work for that. But if you want to go on and get some DD22s or something that at LureNet that's regularly priced, use that code BTL23. You can use it multiple times. It's not a one and done. It's for BTL listeners when they order from LureNet to go in and get 15% off regularly priced items. Code capital BTL23, lurenet.com. Sorry.
No, you're good, dude. Thank you. You're good, man. And then, of course, there's going to be tons of Labor Day specials. So you're just going to have to go on lurenet.com and look and see what the specials are for the times. They're short run specials. So you have to look at that.
Right now through 9/6, Bandit 1 and 200s are 20% off.
Which is fantastic, because I think the Bandit 200, I think people forgot what a great fish catcher the 200 Bandit
What's your
is.
favorite? Give me a couple of your favorite colors in the 200.
My absolute all-time favorite color in the 200 back in the day was root beer. And root beer chartreuse.
There it is right there.
Yeah, back in the day. That I caught so many fish on that. It was ludicrous. But speaking about colors, pay attention to the paint shop, because I am going to have a lot of my colors coming out this year in the paint shop. And I will always tell you guys that it's one of my colors when it's one of my colors. So you'll know which ones they are. But that doesn't mean overlook all of them, because some of the colors are coming up are pretty decent colors. I mean, we're planning a year to a year and a half out on the paint shop, so I know some of the things that are coming out, and there's some really good stuff coming out, so keep an eye on that.
I would
Crazy Crappie is one of mine.
Why is that only in a 300 though? Because it's a crappie color, but I don't understand, would that not be an awesome plug to crank? I mean, yeah, it looks like a brim. It looks like a crappie. It's got some dirty watercolors.
Yeah, it might come out in the 200 later. I don't know. But right now it's in the 300. All those crappie colors on your, go back, all those crappie colors are mine.
Yep.
Basically, those are for the crappie guy. And I know this isn't a crappie show, but for the crappie guy, trolling the Bandit 300 is a big crappie technique.
Can you not crank a 300 too? I got a bunch of 300s that I just cast and crank on like 10-pound fluoro mono.
Absolutely. I do the same thing. Absolutely. In fact, I'll fish the 200, 300 as a combo. So what I'll do is when I'm in the depth range for the 200, I'm throwing the 200. When the break drops a little bit, I'll parallel the break with the 300. It's great for retaining walls in marinas and stuff like that, where they dredge out for the sailboats. That's a killer right there.
All right. That was a good show today.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a part, like, I got emotional, man, because I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the one moment that you've wanted to do since you were 10 years old or 13, whenever you found out you could do it. But that's the biggest hurdle in it. You've already risked things. You've got a family. You're trying to do it. And this is literally the second that came out of nowhere where it was, oh my God, I'm going to be able to do, like, this is what I needed to happen to be able to actually realize my dream. I don't think there's many people that can point to that exact moment where everything changed.
Yeah, and I can tell you this for a fact. When I packed to leave for those couple tournaments in New York, I looked at my wife. I said, this could be my last gig. I said, this could be it. If I don't start generating money somehow, I'm going to have to go back to work. This ain't going to happen. And so it all happened in the same, like, I literally said that to her when I was leaving. And then I made the phone call, called that lady back. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to. I'll be honest with you guys, I wasn't going to, because I didn't know what it was in reference to. They said nothing. You know, if they would have said who it was, I would be like, woo, I'm calling right now.
Before we go, talk a little bit, because I talked with you briefly about this. I'm not exactly sure what the status is. I've mentioned it, the day 4 shirts that are coming out for the fall release. What I know you've talked with, I'll say it, ATS Printing. They're the premier printing company of fishing and fishing related apparel in the world. John Gilman was actually on the show on a regular BTO. We did the media event from Michigan. He opened up the show, shows you where the printing presses and everything are, that it comes. But you had some questions, and I know you talked with them kind of at length about it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for their response to come back. to see. They're going to look at the illustrations that I sent them, and we've discussed, what type of shirts they're going to be on, how I really wanted them printed on the shirt. And so they haven't gotten back to me yet, so I'm going to have to call them and see where we're at on that. But the illustrations, they're 4-color. One of them's a 4-color illustration. One of them's black and white. They're going to be really cool. And we're just going over, shirt material.
But it's going to be a Guy Harvey design, a sketch with your signature on it. That's going to be screen printed.
Yeah, and
however they're going to do it.
Right. So basically, that's what we talked about. I didn't want a heavy screen.
Yep.
Something lighter, something that's more almost like sublimation. And we talked about sublimation, but the problem with the sublimation is they can only put it on polyester.
Yeah, we don't want polyester tee. So because we're going high end tee, just like we did with the first stuff. So we're talking a shirt that'll probably be between $33 and $39.
Yeah, something like that.
With the 4 colors and the high quality, and we're only going to do a limited run of them.
Right,
100 of each shirt.
Exactly, because what I don't want to do is to have a great design and to put it on garbage clothing. It's useless.
Dude, you're the one who got me on that last with that hoodie, because that was like a $68 hoodie, and you're like, I don't care if it's $100 hoodie. I want it on a hoodie that I'm going to wear, and that hoodie is,
oh, that's the bomb.
That is the hoodie.
Yeah, that's the bomb, dude. Like I can't wait till it gets cold so I can start wearing it.
Need Frank to do a Hawaiian shirt.
I'm gonna have to get. I noticed that I was posting some pictures on Instagram, and every picture I'm wearing this damn shirt. So I have to get different shirts now, because they all look like it's the same day.
It's all good. Anything else before we wrap things up here? What are we gonna call this one? What do we got to call it?
Paint your own crankbait. I don't know.
Paint and history.
Yeah, it's because realistically, it wasn't all that much about painting. It was more about the history of how it came to be.
Yeah, we got to figure it out because we got the archives. We have to put it in there. I'd have to put a title. I think just, I don't know, paint and history, because he talked a little bit about it. Because this whole episode kind of spawned with the with your 4-page article in the current Bassmaster edition.
All right, we'll call it Paint and History.
Paint and History.
I like that.
That works. Let's see if the music's working now. It is.
We got it.
Well, sometimes it gets a little wonky. I don't know. Have you ever heard it where it's like wah 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 wah?
Yeah, I did a couple of times. But dude, that was from before, not from recent episodes.
It works now. All right, this has been another edition of Day 4 with the man Frank SCALISH. We'll see everyone next week.